Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's live reading from Brilliant as the Sun, retelling of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, The Sages of Naimisharanya. We are going to begin chapter 6, Narad's Previous Life. Narada further describes his past birth, which culminates in his seeing Lord Vishnu and receiving his eternal spiritual form. Chapter 6, verses 1 to 19 from Canto 1. When the rainy season ended, the four ascetics departed. The boy continued assisting his mother while always remembering Krishna as they had instructed him. He would rise early and worship the Lord in his mind, chanting the mantra they had taught him. Seeing his devotional inclinations, his mother did her best to give him time for his spiritual practices. She would work harder than all other servants so that her son need not do as much. Still, whenever her master would see the boy not working, he would give him jobs. So despite her best efforts, the woman was unable to do anything to help her son. Even so, the boy was not disturbed because he knew everything happened by Krishna's divine arrangement. One night, the master wanted milk. Send the lad to the cowsheds, he told the boy's mother. Not wanting to disturb her son, who was absorbed in meditation, she took the vessel and went out into the dark. As she walked by the scant moonlight, she accidentally stepped on a coiled snake, which immediately bit her. She screamed in pain and terror and stumbled back to her room. There she collapsed to the floor and writhed in agony in front of her alarmed son. "Snake," she cried repeatedly. The boy ran over and knelt by his mother, frantically examining her to find the bite. The venom quickly coursed through her veins. Within a few minutes, the woman died as her son loudly chanted Krishna's name. The boy cradled his mother, stroking her forehead, trying to make sense of the night's events. Knowing that everything was under Krishna's control, the child tried to understand his will. As long as his mother lived, he would have stayed to assist her. The Lord, however, had taken his mother. He now had no reason to stay there in the association of materialists. Out of his causeless mercy, Krishna had freed him from all obligation. Unseen by everyone, the boy immediately walked out into the night, taking only a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. Following the light of the pole star which the four saints had once shown him, he headed towards the north, determining to become an ascetic. So that the master would not find him, he left the main path and walked through the dense jungle. That night he curled up beneath a tree with his blanket around him and slept. By Krishna's arrangement, he was not troubled by wild animals, and the next day he continued his journey. Day after day, month after month, and year after year, the boy walked, surviving on fruits and wild roots, continuously chanting his mantra. Gradually, hunger and thirst no longer troubled him as he became fixed in spiritual consciousness. Occasionally, when he passed through a city or town, some kind person would offer him a cooked meal. The boy grew into a tall man. Still, he continued to roam about Krishna's creation, just as his spiritual masters had done before him. He walked tirelessly through flourishing cities, towns, villages, farms, mines, agricultural lands, valleys, flower gardens, and forests. When people saw the young bearded mendicant, they would come to hear spiritual discourses from him, and he would repeat for their benefit all he had heard from his own spiritual masters. As he grew older, he desired more solitude to practice meditation. Thus he headed for the wilderness. He passed through mountains colored by great veins of gold and silver, and large freshwater lakes with lotus flowers beautified by bees and singing birds. Admiring the celestial beauty of his surroundings, he imagined he was in a heaven. At other times he entered dark, fearsome forests, dense with reeds and thorny bushes, and inhabited by the snakes, owls, and baying jackals. When he felt exhausted, he would bathe in clear mountains, lakes, and drink their cool water. Feeling refreshed, he would sit under the shade of a tree and meditate on Krishna with feeling of ecstatic love, intoning his mantra, his eyes brimming with tears of longing to see the Lord. On one such occasion, he sat under a banyan tree in an uninhabited forest meditating on Krishna. The Lord appeared within his heart. He immediately began to horripilate his mind, overcome with ecstasy. Suddenly the Lord's form disappeared. No longer seeing his beloved Lord, he became agitated with grief of separation. He jumped up in distress like a person who has lost a great treasure. Krishna, Krishna, where have you gone? He repeatedly called as he searched the forest groves. When he could not see Krishna anywhere, he sat down again in meditation, desperate for another vision of his Lord. Not seeing Krishna even in his heart, he became agitated. Hot tears streamed down his cheeks. He felt dizzy and in confusion kept calling, Krishna, Krishna, where are you? Why have you left me, O my Lord, my Lord? Chapter 6, verses 20 to 26. To his wonderment, he heard an ethereal voice address him affectionately. My dear devotee, I have revealed myself to you because of your sincere and determined practice. Never do I show myself to those careless in their worship. I appear before you in order to increase your yearning for my eternal association. Such intense hankering for me destroys all material desires. As that longing intensifies, my devotee's pure love for me gradually deepens. The Lord told him the reason for his great fortune was the training he had received from the four ascetics. He assured his devotee that if he continued to follow their instructions, he would become the Lord's associate in the transcendental world after leaving this body. A fear arose in the saint's heart. What if he should forget the Lord at the time of death? Understanding his anxiety, the Lord assured him, whatever advancement you make will never be destroyed. Your transcendental knowledge and love for me will stay with you birth after birth until it fully matures. Then you will return to me. Feeling grateful, the saint bowed his head in obeisance. Then he resumed his travels, chanting the Lord's glories without inhibition wherever he went. His mind was completely satisfied. He envied no one and had no pride. He thus spent the remainder of his life absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Wherever he traveled, he spread the Lord's glories. He was free of all material attachments and aversions. Then when the allotted time of his death arrived, he instantaneously received an eternal, indestructible spiritual body befitting an associate of the Lord. Vyasadeva sat mesmerized as Narada finished his tale. Now from chapter 6, verse 27 to 28. As a young boy, said Narada, I had no spiritual discernment, but I associated with those four great sannyasis who possessed pure devotion and profound knowledge of the absolute truth. I heard from them the Srimad Bhagavatam and achieved a most wonderful result. Chapter 6, verse 40. Looking pointedly at Vyasadeva, Narada said, therefore I ask that you simply describe Krishna's pastime. By so doing, you will fully satisfy the pious, and then they will be able to uplift others by their association. Chapter 6, verses 29 to 32. Vyasadeva nodded slowly. Narada's personal testimony was powerful. Still he had a doubt. Master, since you attained your eternal spiritual body at that time, how is it you have now taken birth as Brahma's son? Just as the eternally spiritual Lord descends into the world to reclaim the fallen souls, similarly I also appear. When Narayan lay down in the causal waters of creation, I entered with his breath and then was born from Brahma's deliberation. Narada explained how the difference between himself and Brahma's other sons was that his body is spiritual, but the other sages took birth in material body. So Narad ji, who is the son of Brahma here, in this birth has got a spiritual body, whereas the other sons of Brahma, they have got material bodies. Since I appeared in my own spiritual body, I am free to travel anywhere within this material creation and also to the spiritual worlds without impediment. Wherever I go, I play my transcendental lute and sing the Lord's glories for the benefits of all souls. Chapter 6, verses 33 to 36. Vyasadeva further asked, after attaining his association, are you now feeling unhappiness being separated from the Lord? Narada laughed, I am never apart from my Lord. As soon as I glorify him, he appears visibly in my heart. As he summoned, Vyasadeva looked at his spiritual master in awe. Narada again became grave. My dear Vyasadeva, I have told you my history in order to persuade you to exclusively describe the Lord's glories. The conditioned soul suffering in this material world will never attain satisfaction even by gratifying their senses piously, nor indeed by renouncing their sense gratification. Constant hearing and chanting about Krishna is the only suitable boat for helping all souls cross the ocean of material suffering and dissatisfaction. Chapter 6, verses 37 to 38. Bringing his narration to a close, Sutta concluded, Narada then took leave of Vyasadeva, and whilst playing his lute, he ascended into the sky and disappeared. Folding his hands or palms in respect, Sutta praised Narada. All glories and success to the illustrious Narada, because in great joy he always extols the Lord, traveling throughout the universe to save the suffering souls. Shaunak and other sages lifted their arms into the airs and enthusiastically exclaimed, all praise to Narada. And with this, we end the 6th chapter, Narada's previous life, and next time it will be chapter 7, Pandavas and Krishna. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll continue next time. Hariam Tat Sat, Hare Krishna. Happy Gita Jayanti and Moksha Ekadashi for tomorrow to everyone.